in these lockdowns, I've realised how important our restaurant is to so many people for their memories, their celebrations, the little things that they really hold close to them. And it's just been amazing to be delivering to people's houses and having a quick 30-second chat and seeing how excited they are to get this dinner for their home. And I'm just blown away by it. I absolutely love it.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are talking to a very individual restaurateur, someone who runs a restaurant that's been around for, I think, 7 years now, and it's a place that is just not like anywhere else. From the very beginning, when O.My opened in Beaconsfield in Melbourne's outer southeast, it was a restaurant that Melbourne just did not have. It was new, it was run by the Bertoncello brothers, and it just felt so personal, such a special place to be. It's been through numerous incarnations, each of them just has such character, and that it creates such a sense of place and such a sense of connection that I just love it. And when I think about going back to restaurants and the kinds of experiences that I'm missing and that I'm hankering after, O.My is one of the places that comes to mind. So Chayse, thank you so much for coming along to have a chat today.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Tell me about O.My. What sort of project has it been over the years?
It's been interesting. We opened when myself and my brothers were quite young. We were sort of a bit over working for other people, and we really just wanted to express our style of restaurant that we like. And over the last just over 7 years now, it's been a pretty wild ride of chopping and changing, and really just trying to sort of hone in on exactly what we want to do as a restaurant and exactly the story that we want to put forward to the guests. And it's been a wild ride, and then obviously in the last 6 or so months, it's been another challenge, but it's something that we've been kind of pivoting for the last 7 years anyway. So this was just another little bump in the road that we have to work around and try and find a little bit of joy and excitement out of it, whichever way we can.
Wow, well, it's a very impressive attitude. Let's just dig into a little bit more about what O.My actually is. So, if I think about going there, you've moved premises, you sort of moved next door and expanded ever so slightly. But the thing that strikes me most when I think about the restaurant is how very personal the experience is. So, you guys are there, you're very present, and the dining rooms are small, so you don't feed a lot of people at once. It's also it's a tasting menu, so there's you take us on a journey, and it's something that you construct very carefully, but also in response to the seasons. And I think as you guys have developed your farm over the past few years, that's become even more part of the project. Tell us, that's from my side as a lucky diner that's experienced the restaurant. What about from your side? What was the project? What did you think a restaurant should be or could be?
We started we wanted, I know it sounds cliche and all that, but we just wanted to have a restaurant that we would want to go to. Simple food, things that made sense, that was meant to be there. Try and have the alcohol by people we know that we have a connection with. And over the years, that's sort of evolved a lot with obviously Blayne and I getting a little bit more mature in how we approach the restaurant and how we want the restaurant to be. And since moving to obviously growing all of our own food ourselves, so all the fruit and veg, we haven't had to buy anything for the last almost 4 years, I reckon, maybe even a little bit longer, and sort of restricting ourselves to only that, like whatever we can get from our farm, and then going to small producers for our dairy and meats. And sort of putting yourself with a lot of restrictions really makes you think differently about your product and your story and how you want to put it forward. And like we always say, it would be great just to have our all-star menu with all of our favorite things on it all the time. But I think like looking forward to those times in the year where those dishes are present on the menu and planning around growing all these things to put on the menu, it's been great because it's never boring. There's just It's always changing. It's always different. The prep lists are never just the exact same thing. Everyone's always doing different, interesting things. And then, of course, having the farm, being able to like everything starts there for us. So it's not so much ticking the things on a piece of paper that we want to be delivered next week, that we want delivered next week. It's more, okay, we need to think 9, 10, 12 months ahead sometimes to plan our menus and really get the most out of our farm. And I think since we moved into that mentality of only using what we can do and can get ourselves, it sort of changed the whole mindset of the restaurant moving into a real zero low to zero wastage approach, getting the most out of your ingredient. Seeing an ingredient 3 or 4 times across a menu to us doesn't phase us. We'd want to show how pumpkin can be over snacking, sweet and savory. And I think if you want to use pumpkin as an example, but if you want to have that on a menu, usually you see it once and then you go on to the next thing. But for us, that's what we have at that time. So we just we make sure we're showcasing it and using it, and trying to just almost also just talk people through eating seasonally to some extent. I think that's such an important part of life because it is so easy just to go to Woolies and get whatever fruit and veg you want and make dinner. But for us, we're going, okay, it's artichoke season. We've got a lot of artichokes. So we're going to use them on the menu. So I think it's a really great learning curve for new people getting involved in the restaurant and seeing our approach to things. And we didn't open a restaurant to step out of it and let someone else run it. So Blayne and I have worked every service since we opened. And that's not because we have trust issues. It's just we really like working. We love being in the. I love being in the dining room, and I love working across the path from Blayne. And we've got a really good relationship and a really good understanding of each other's roles in the restaurant. And there's a lot of respect there as well. And it helps being brothers, but it also we've got a very similar mindset on how we want our guests to sort of see our restaurant and how we want them to get involved while they're there, and sort of have a bit of an understanding when they leave that they've actually learnt something maybe, or they've seen something that they thought couldn't be done. But we don't want smoke and mirrors. We just want um, real talk, real food, and good booze.
Yeah, well, everything you're saying is it's very inspiring and exciting, and it makes me think of a bunch of experiences that I've had in the restaurant. You know, you mentioned pumpkin; it's one of the dishes that you have become known for because you do use there's broth, there's something with the skin, there's the seeds, there's the flesh, and it's impossible to eat like that across a menu and not think about pumpkin and not consider that there are different parts to it and not honor it in some way. Another thing that I found very striking last time I ate with you was your approach to meat. So tell us about your beef farmer and about the concept of having a cow that you know by name in the cool room.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting conversation the first time we got to meet Jan and talk to her about what she's been doing at her farm. And she dined at the restaurant, and we were getting really sick of just putting meat on the plate because we thought that's what we needed to do and all those things. So we actually went pretty much vegetarian apart from um, small bits here and there, and using meat as a way of cooking vegetables. And I think that was pretty much he'll probably hear this, but Blayne being quite stubborn in the sense, like, why do I need to put a piece of Scotch beef on the plate? Why can't I still fulfill people's needs, but and show them vegetables? So yeah, Jan came along, and we took all the staff down there one day. She's just in Gippsland, so she's only probably about 45, 50 minutes from the restaurant. Um, and yeah, the reception we got when we went there was just an amazing, thoughtful experience. It was completely free range. She knew every cow's personalities, their tendencies, their names. it was just so amazing to see someone so involved in their craft and in their it making this so much part of their life. And yeah, she agreed to. She'd never ever sold a cow to a restaurant before, so she agreed to let us sort of. She'll choose the cow, and then yeah, we'd get the cow delivered at the restaurant, and we'd use every part of it over probably a 7 to 8 week span, depending on the time of year. Um, it means the menu has to adjust every week based on what cut you're using and things like that. And I think some people did get pretty. It was quite confronting when we told people the name of the cow. But that was one of Jan's. That was one of the fine prints on the contract was you got to tell people the names. And I said, oh well, this is that's what you do, so we'll honour it. And yeah, some people don't want to know, so you definitely don't you don't tell everyone. But I think she named one Chayse and Blayne as well. So that was pretty weird. When she told me that, I was a bit scared. I was like, oh, that's a bit much. But
Yeah, where is this
nah,
relationship going?
yeah, I know. I was sort of going, oh, okay. We might have a sit down, I reckon. But no, it's been really cool, and we've got a similar relationship with the guys at Bruthing Creek Pork as well, down far east Gippsland. And for us, it's about buying the whole animal in and using it using every little part of it. And it's again like new people coming in, new chefs, new front of house, seeing this side of cooking. Where all the food's coming from our own farm and the cow's being delivered by the person who farmed it, is a pretty amazing thing. And it can seem from the outside looking in that it's quite like you're putting way too many restrictions on yourself, but like restrictions are the things that have just kept us ticking and kept our mind ticking over to get better and better.
Well, yeah, so we come to restrictions, and at the moment, we're living in a 5K Melbourne. We are quite restricted in what we're allowed to do. You're not allowed to open your restaurant in the normal way. Um, so, yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about restrictions as an opportunity and as, I guess, a spur for creativity. So, tell me how you guys have dealt with the pandemic.
Yeah, so I came into work one morning and Blayne had all these big A3 pages all over the dining table, and I'm like, oh god, he hasn't slept. I'm like, what's going on? And he said, because as soon as the A3 pages are out, I know there's something up. So I walked, and I just said, oh, so what's going on, mate? And he goes, oh, this coronavirus thing's pretty serious. And I'd been naive, just went, oh, I think like the rest of Melbourne, we were like that. I was like, oh, come on, mate, it's not going to be that bad. And he goes, well, even if it's not going to be that bad, we need to start planning now. And I think this is about 6, 7 weeks before the first shutdown. Um,
Ah, that's ahead
and
of
I
the
said,
curve. Yeah.
yeah, I said, okay, what do you want to do, mate? And he goes, well, let's just lean on the farm and we'll do that. So we're lucky that we didn't have to get rid of like no staff were let go, which is great. Um, and yeah, we just leaned on the farm and lent on the farm, sorry. And yeah, we were doing about 120 farm boxes a week. And then adding in the guys from the corner inlet fisheries, they were really struggling to sell any of their fish. So we started buying that as well and making seafood boxes. So we were doing about 150 boxes a week all up. Um, and it was a lot of work, and it was honestly it was a pain in the ass. I can't say it any other way. It was stressful. And it seemed like we were working more, but we
Mm.
weren't getting that end game of that adrenaline rush of a service. And I think we were all because there was that weird novelty about that first lockdown where everyone was just like, "Oh, look at this! We're at home. We're doing this." And I think you add doing the boxes like we were on top of it did get quite stressful. I think it came to a day where I said to Blayne, "Listen, we're going to look at this in a bit of a different light. This is a forced this is forcing me and you to slow down a little bit. Like we haven't slowed down a little bit in 7 years. like
Yeah.
we need to take a bit of time." So we started just working things a bit differently on that. We got to reopen the restaurant, and that was a pretty wild couple of weeks. It was uh, both the bar and the restaurant quite busy, and obviously with restricted numbers. But I think this second lockdown's been a lot different for us. We've really stepped back. We've really slowed down. I know I'll speak for Blayne here. Being able to eat dinner at home every night with our partners has been amazing. Like I don't think I'll get this opportunity to have dinner with my fiance 7 nights a week ever again. So it's sort of we've seen it in a bit of a different light. We're really just trying to chill out, do some gardening at home, but also work 3 days a week with the staff to produce the at home boxes. So it's been quite interesting.
It's yeah, I mean, really interesting. Are there things? I mean, you've had this experience now of having dinner at home. Do you feel like that it's just going to be that thing that you it was like, oh, that was so fun and weird and nice, but yeah, I won't do that again. Or do you think you will try to build some more of that into the future?
Well, I think we will. Like I think we don't want to. Our hours at the restaurant are already pretty good for everyone. We only do 4 days of actual operations, so I think it's then going to slow us down on the days we are closed. I think we'll be spending a lot more time at home with our partners and a lot more time doing non-restaurant related things. As much as it doesn't stop ticking up in your head, I think we both have realised how important it's been just to take our mind off things a little bit more and focus on what we don't get to do too often. So um, yeah, I've really enjoyed being at home with with Tash. She's been great. So
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I feel like you already built a post-COVID restaurant pre-COVID because you had, you've got the local thing down, you've got the no waste thing down, you've got the small restaurant happening. I mean, it's this period has been the first time that a lot of people have really thought about supply chains, and you've seen how fragile some of these
yeah,
the whole system of getting food to our plates can be, like how we're not that there are only a few things need to go wrong before the shelves are empty, and you can't just write your shopping list blithely and be guaranteed that you're going to be able to fulfill every item on that list. But you guys weren't
exactly.
working like that anyway.
Yeah, well, like even on a couple of points there, like the restaurant obviously moving from next door to the new venue, I said to Blayne, I want a dining room with lots of space. I want no more than 8 tables, which means we're not doing pretty much more than 20 guests a night anyway. Um, and then our local support has just been phenomenal. Like I knew we had an amazing local following just because with 99 out of 100 things that we do, the support is there and people are so excited. But I think in these lockdowns, I've realized how important our restaurant is to so many people for their memories, their celebrations, the little things that they really hold close to them. And it's just been amazing to be delivering to people's houses and having a quick 30-second chat and seeing how excited they are to get this dinner for their home. And yeah, like everything we've done, doing the first boxes and then going into a market and then going into the at home, like the support's just been there right across the board from the local community. And yeah, I'm just blown away by it. I absolutely love it. And being obviously growing up in Beaconsfield and being around the town for a long time, and it's sort of just like amazing to see that people are so willing to support a small business, a small local business like us. And yeah, I can't wait for for the future as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I guess, do you want to just describe Beaconsfield for people who haven't been there?
Yeah, well, a lot of people think it's very much out of the way and it's a bit in the middle of nowhere, but it's actually quite a beautiful spot where we're situated in a pretty heavy growth corridor, looking down to like Clyde Way and then to Officer and Pakenham. There's a lot of, and even going further to Nanagoon and things like that. There's a lot of young families. There actually is a lot of people out our way, but there's no special occasion restaurant. There's nowhere that people can get an experience like what we're trying to put forward. And like we're 45, 50 minutes from the city. We're 45 minutes from Healesville. We're 45 minutes from Gippsland. Like we're in a really beautiful spot where we can tack onto a lot of different markets. We're not too far out of the way. And in terms of local restaurants and wine bars, there's not that many at all. So we're hitting a nice little market.
Yeah, it's a funny thing the way that we think about our suburbs, and Beaconsfield. I guess it's city fringe, and as you describe, like there's a lot of urban development around there. I mean, you can get the train there, like the
Yeah,
metro train. It's right off the freeway, like it's super accessible. But I think we're still pretty snobby about what's possible in the suburbs of our large cities, and it's a funny thing, like we love our regions, like we love the Yarra Valley, but are we really going to stop on the way to the Yarra Valley? Do you know what I mean? It's like, but
yeah, and I think this
is
5 kilometer radius now has shown a lot of people what's in their 5 kilometers, and I think it's scared the crap out of a couple of people because they're like, I've got nothing. I've got no nature reserves. I can't walk my dogs anywhere. And I think if people like, and I've talked about it a lot with friends in the industry about like building that local community support is probably one of the most important parts about running a restaurant like ours. Even if it is a fine dining, or whatever fine dining, if you want to call it fine dining, but if more of a upscaled restaurant, like that community support is so important.
what would you say is like in normal trade? What proportion of customers are local?
I'd say probably around 80%. Yeah,
Wow,
probably
that's
probably eighty
amazing.
percent, and it differs from in certain times of the year, and then certain services and things like that. But yeah, our local, it's just now having, because you have like you have to do all the contact tracing and things like that. You're seeing, it's like, wow, we've got a whole dining room tonight of people from Beaconsfield. This is awesome, and it sort of
It's so great.
yeah, it sort of makes you go, oh, that's so cool. And like they're drinking interesting wines, and they're eating a 90% vegetarian tasting menu, and they're going, and they're just losing their mind. And I'm like, this is really cool. This is why we
Yeah.
opened a restaurant in the first place.
Wow, that must be such a good feeling. And just tell people, like, it's how much is the tasting menu and how many courses would people expect to have?
Oh god, I can't even think of. I don't even know what the price is. It's been so long since I've served anyway. I think it's I think it's 185 a head, um, for the food, and then we have matching options, both alcoholic, non-alcoholic, and a combination of the two. And then it varies. The tasting menu, it varies between 12 and 22 items. Blayne can change that on us on the day. He sometimes changes it halfway through service. The joys of what we do is we don't print a menu. You don't know what's coming out. If you tell us you don't like something beforehand, we'll avoid it. But it's really about never knowing what's next on the plate, and yeah, it keeps things very interesting, and it also makes return guests excited because they're getting new menus every time.
Yeah, there's always a reason to come back. I suppose the seasons are always changing. One thing we haven't talked too much about, which is a massive part of what you do, is the whole preserving side of things. And I guess what I'd love people who are listening to this to get out of it, not everyone's got a farm, and not everyone happened to set up their restaurant in a suburban community where there is nothing else like them. Well,
Mm.
I'd love people to come out of it with some ideas about what could they do to create something that's a bit more anchored, a bit more local, maybe a bit more seasonal. And I wonder if we could start that discussion by you just talking through your approach to preserving.
Yeah, well, I think with Blayne, in terms of how he looks at farming in particular, is and no wastage is probably the most important part. Is if we're getting produce in the door from the farm, we have to use it. It's not going in the bin. We refuse to put it in the bin. So for us, it's always just trying to maximize every part of the ingredient. And like, to be honest, sometimes our pickling and preserving of things just don't work, but we've tried it, and it might go later down the track where you're like, oh wow, kohlrabi stems are really good pickled, but they
Hmm.
might be shit. And I think you don't know until you've done it. And I think for us, it's just trying to show full respect to the ingredient. And pickling preserving is a massive part of the way we cook. Blayne's is very much, and same with me when putting it with wine. We love salt and pickles. Like we love that combination of flavor, that fat salt pickle combination, and you'll probably see it on 3 or 4 different dishes or flavor combinations in the night. But showing the current season and then the seasons that have come before, and tying those together on a tasting menu, it's quite wonderful to see, because you remember that day you picked those tiny little green tomatoes before they ripened, but then you're putting them on a dish with fresh tomatoes that you picked that day.
Mm.
It's like a really nice approach to flavor combinations, but it's a really nice story to tell at the table as well.
Yeah, well, I guess anyone anywhere can preserve things and create that connection. They might not have grown the food, but they can be the one that's put it in the jar or the bottle, can't they?
Yeah, and I think like these days it's getting easier and easier to find the fresh food in your area. It's like finding that point of eating seasonal as much as you can, I think is just such an important thing. Like for example, at home we've been getting a box of vegetables, even though we've got the farm, but there's a local farmer just over the road from me, and we get a box of vegetables every week, and it's like Christmas. We're so excited. And they're not all perfect. Some of them are ugly, some of them are got spots and bots, but we just go, this is so cool. Okay, we're so excited to, and we've been pickling, preserving at home, because if we're not going to use it all in that week, there will be when we pickle and preserve things and make chutneys and jams and so on. But I think it's just trying to elongating that fresh produce and using it as much as you can is so important, and it's like been a massive eye opening even for me, just for the last 7 years, just seeing how much you can actually get from one product.
Mm. And what about community? Like, do you have anything that you've learned or that you could pass on about, how to nurture the community that you're in?
Um, yeah, I really, for us, it's just trying not to make too much noise. We just don't want to make, we don't want to give anyone any reason to not enjoy our restaurant. We never ever want it to be too far fetched that people would be kind of nervous to go there. So like that even comes down to the service approach. Like I can't be any different to what I am. I don't really have a filter. I don't. I talk to people like if I the same in the dining room as I would down the street, and I think that's a big part of things in dining at O.My is just like, and you hear it from a lot of locals as well. They're like, "Oh, I was really worried that it was going to be snooty and I'd be called sir or madame," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, nah, that's not going to happen here. I'm so I can't do that." And just like we've invited locals into the bar, and if we know people, we always look after people as well. Like that's the thing. If people really digging our restaurant, we're always going to look after them. If that's a loaf of bread to take home after dinner, or if there's a bottle of wine open that they liked, I usually hand it to them. Um, for me, it's just like I want it to be a place that, and it Blayne's the same. We want it to be a place that our local community really get behind, and if we ever need anything from them, they'll come running to help. And this pandemic's been a perfect example of that.
Oh, it's funny. It actually makes me remember stories you told me about building the second restaurant where you are now, and just about how, like, some guy like brought some knocked down. What did he do? He chopped down a tree and brought it in, and suddenly you were making a table out of it, or some crazy story like that. Or
I
it's just,
walked into the new restaurant one day, and there was like 4 or 5 different guests all helping us renovate. And I'm like, I've never seen you guys all in the same room before. This is really weird. I all know you through my obviously through the job, but it's just crazy, and people throwing business cards at us, going, if you need anything, just call us. We'll come do it at any time. Like, yeah, people were chopping down trees and making bowls for us and going, "Can you use this in the restaurant?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we'd love it." And then 2 days later, he comes back with 20 more, and we're like, "Okay, that's pretty cool." So, yeah, it's so interesting, especially on the renovations, which feels like years ago that we did the move, but
Yeah.
yeah, Emma got more
It's in,
renovations coming in the next couple of days.
oh, what are you doing?
Oh, we're gonna. It's not really on the down low now, but we're going to be opening a bottle shop, like an interactive bottle shop. Something that I've really wanted to do for a while, and a way for me to support um, people in the wine industry more than I can right now. And yeah, I got some pretty fun little ideas with that, and I think the area really needs something like that, where the wine's a bit different and the service is a bit different in a bottle shop. So
Okay. Interesting. Well, I don't know. When you say interactive bottle shop, it makes me think, but everyone's in masks. And then I want to ask you, what do you think, like coming out of this second lockdown, what do you think hospitality in Melbourne is going to look like? And are you doing anything different to meet that challenge?
yeah, I think it's going to look incredibly different. I think, especially looking at venues that have massive amounts of turnover every night of hundreds of guests going through the door and seating people shoulder to shoulder. I just can't see that being a reality anytime soon. Um, I think I think the outdoor dining thing is going to be quite interesting. I think if you've lived in Melbourne long enough, you know that there's no guarantee on the weather at all. So that's gonna
If you've lived in Melbourne for one day, you know there are four seasons. So, yeah.
exactly right. Like it's hard, but the thing is, you got to be patient. You got to be understanding. I think people are going to be a lot different. I think the actual guests are going to be. I think they've realized. I think guests have. I know personally, I've really missed restaurants, and I think for a long time, maybe people have taken it for granted. Potentially, I'm not speaking for everyone here, but I think people have really missed going out to restaurants, and I think they've really missed that connection and that feeling you get at a restaurant. And I just think the guest attitude towards a restaurant will change for the better. I think there's going to be a lot more respect there. There's going to be a lot more patience. There's going to be a lot more understanding because it's not going to be easy to reopen the restaurant and run it in the COVID times, but people really want to get out and people really want to eat some dinner and have a glass of wine. So yeah, they're going to hopefully be a little bit more understanding and patient about what we're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope that you are right, and by saying it, you make it happen. Chase, just finally, I want to talk to you about a podcast that I listened to recently. And obviously, I start every day by listening to Deep in the Weeds by my stablemate, Anthony Huckstep. I don't usually listen to my own podcasts, but I did listen to, I went off piste and listened to a Desert Island Discs, and it was with Michelle and Albert Roux, who are
Mm.
chef brothers. It was from 1986, and the rapport between them was so extraordinary. And by listening to them talk about favorite records and a little bit about their past, you could really see how it was possible for them. They spoke for one another. They just had such a gentle, funny way of being together. And I wonder, is it always roses with you and Blayne?
Um, you know what? Like everyone always says, "Geez, you must get under each other's skin." In fairness, I get under everyone's skin because I'm the younger brother, so I'm always and I'm the one who talks all the time, so I'm always under everyone's skin. But Blaine and I think, especially in the last probably 4 or 5 years, the respect level that we've got for each other is just like out of this world because we both see each other like I'm trying to be better than him and he's trying to be better than me, and but we're both striving for the same outcome for our restaurant. Like we're both pushing our hardest to get better and pushing, like really trying to involve everyone in what we're doing. And like this isn't our restaurant. This is everyone who's in that restaurant, who works there. It's everyone's. We want everyone to feel like that. We have our tiffs, and you have your arguments, you have your disagreements, but it usually just comes with a clink of a glass after service, and maybe you'll come over and watch the footy, and we'll both yell at Carlton losing again to just to realise that we're brothers, and we do love each other, and we like, it's not all bad. Like, we have the same mentality, we've got the same sense of humour, same taste in wine, and the same taste in music. So we're pretty much the same people. But he's just very good at cooking.
Great. Well, I look forward to hearing your Desert Island Discs one day. And I did not know that you guys were fellow Carlton supporters.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, mate, is it ever going to happen? It's been
Well,
such a tough
see,
road for us.
I'm 26, so I've only ever known loss of Carlton. I've only ever known us being subpar. I think I watched the '95 grand final. I think I was probably asleep the whole time when I was 18 months old.
Okay.
So ever since then, it's just been a mess for me. But God, I love them.
That's right.
I bought a membership. I'm going to buy another one next year, even though I can't ever get to a game. But I do love the Blues.
Well, no Victorian can get to a Carlton game this season. But anyway, Chayse, it's been an absolute pleasure, and can't wait till my there is no kilometre limit and I can get back to the restaurant and experience the O.My wonder. Thank you so much for your time today. Really, really fantastic to chat.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.